you already have the answer. And since I've already given you the answer and you're not doing what you're supposed to with it, I'm going to make this a real unpleasant experience for you so you stop doing it for a second and actually integrate what you learned the first time.
Holy shit.
Welcome to the Myself Wellness Podcast. I'm Charles Patti, the voice of Myself Wellness, along with my co-hosts Christina Thomas and Jamie Veneziale. 9 years ago, I began my journey to self-awareness and healing. Like many who have faced personal struggles, I felt lost and struggled to find lasting healing. It wasn't until I discovered alternative healing methods that I began to see a real change in my life. This show will help you unlock your true potential through healthy lifestyle practices and transformations. Join us as we explore personal stories, expert advice, and practical tips to help you step into your true potential and level up. Welcome to the Myself Wellness Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Myself Wellness Podcast. Today we have our lovely friend Bianca Abbott with us. Bianca is a master of fasting, Kundalini Yoga. She is a nurse practitioner. What else? I feel like you do so much.
Yeah, it's many
You
things.
have a scroll.
An event producer, a sound healer. I do retreats.
She's just an amazing all-around human being, and we're so grateful to have her in our lives and on our show.
Yes.
I wanted to jump in because Christina, right before you got here, was talking about the 10-day fast that she went on.
Yes.
I've dabbled with
Ready.
fasting.
Uh-huh.
I think I did it the wrong way. I think I did like I tried to do a 72-hour fast, ended up doing a 48-hour fast because I felt like the heart palpitations or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
When people are fasting, what are the common pitfalls that they do when they're doing it without somebody like you to help guide them through?
Well, fortunately, I've been able to guide people intelligently and effectively. So it really creates an environment of ease. And most people go through it and they're like, oh my gosh, I just fasted and I can't believe that I was able to do that. But if you're doing it unintelligently and not with a nutritional protocol and a supplement protocol, you can, if you're on medications, it can really be very dangerous for the body. It can be very depleting for the body. It can be very dangerous. So, and a lot of my clients are on medications and, have, chronic health conditions. So we have to really be intelligent about fasting. And I think that most people are going into it uneducated. And so that's why I created a program, because I saw people, breaking their fast with a burger. And that's just like the wrong way to go about it. So for me, it's been like a movement of consciousness to help people take their health and bring it to the next level. Because in Western medicine, I find most people think they're healthy. And then we get to the nitty gritty and having symptoms like constipation and hemorrhoids and high blood pressure and high cholesterol. These are not normal things. And we've normalized them in Western medicine. So it's really exciting because you can heal yourself very quickly when you have the right information, and healing can be fun and it can be, a very enlightening process.
It's interesting. When I did the 48-hour fast, you forget to realize how much of an event and entertainment that food is. In a lot of cases, we look at food as like entertainment, something to do, versus what it really is, which is fuel for the body. And it's our ability to do, move, all that type of stuff. When you're walking people through the idea of fasting, do you have to, do you see that with people where they're like, oh, wow, all of a sudden I have all these hours free in my day that I didn't even know I realized that I was putting towards food?
Oh, yeah. Most Americans eat when they're bored, eat when they need to, just eat habitually. We have been trained and conditioned to eat 3 meals a day. And for some people, that might be a good choice. But for most, it's really not, especially if you're, in a place where you want to have more of an enlightening life. And, when you put food in your body, you actually halt yourself from being spiritually connected. And the yogis have known this for thousands and thousands of years. Like eating a big breakfast in the morning, if you really want to have like a powerful yogic and meditative practice, that's the last thing you should do. You want to really stay away from digestion when you want to connect to God, when you want to connect to the divine. And so that's why, you know, when I really entered this whole world, it was like so backwards. And so if you look at healing and health, a lot of it is upside down. And so learning from the ancients is a no-brainer because they've been doing this for thousands of years. It stood the test of time. So LunaFast, my program, is really going back to ancient wisdom and bringing forward a revolution that has been around for thousands of years, which is so amazing. But at the same time, it's like, duh, like, wake up, you silly Americans. So it's just, I think we are really walking into the golden age and waking up from like a catastrophe in my mind.
Yeah.
And healing, especially with mental illness. And you guys know, yeah. So healing the gut is essential to everything. And if you have a toxic gut, you have a toxic mind, you have a toxic way of thinking. And in America, I think we have really been fed a whole way of being a pharmaceutical disaster.
It's this cycle of bad food, pills, hospitalization, bad food, pills, hospital, and it's just this continuous cycle. You mentioned the gut microbiome and how that is connected to your brain. Most people, at least I found that out, I think I was like 18 that I started to hear about that, and it makes so much sense. But could you explain behind the scenes of that? Like, why is it that our gut is so connected to our brain?
So we have more neurotransmitters in our gut than our brain. So I consider our gut our first brain. And when we are eating sugar, consuming alcohol, processed foods, we're literally feeding the bad bacteria in our gut. And we create a whole environment for these nasty microbes that then control our thoughts, control our way of being, especially parasites. Parasites are horrible. And to get parasites out of your being takes about 3 months, and it really requires getting off of animal protein. So most people that have been on animal protein most of their life and haven't really done a cleanse have parasites. And if you're eating pork and things like this, worms, they go to your brain. And so a lot of these brain diseases like Parkinson's disease and ALS, I think is from poor meat quality and being infected by parasites.
You know what's super interesting about that is during COVID, one of our nurses, her mom got COVID and Dr. Ferber was prescribing ivermectin, and they were Cuban. So she lived most of her life in Cuba, ate a lot of pork. And she started to have early onset dementia. We gave her the ivermectin, and for about a few weeks, all the symptoms of her dementia went away.
And it's because it's ivermectin kills parasites. You know, isn't it true that serotonin production actually starts in the gut?
Yes.
See, I've heard that before, but I just really wasn't like aware of it.
So like when we cleanse our gut, we actually become happier. We become more in touch with our emotions because we've released these harmful bacteria, and we come back to a baseline. And most people don't know their baseline here in America because we've been fed a diet that is severely like disease oriented.
And we're one of the only countries too that's not taught to fast, which I think is super interesting. And even though her fast is 10 days, I felt like it was really easy. And that was my first fast I've ever done. I mean, I'll go all day without eating, but I don't call that fasting. I just call that not having time to eat, skipping a meal.
Being an entrepreneur.
But it was easy, and the way she just guides you through it is super simple and digestible. And I feel like even though it seems very intimidating, she packages it in a way that makes it easy for you to do. And I want to do it again. Ready.
And you like released some nasty little critters, didn't you?
Yeah, I had a lot of stuff going on when we did that. It was right when I took my implants out and I was dealing with breast implant illness, and it was just affecting every cell in my body. And I feel like her fast was a good way for me to jumpstart to get those toxins out of me.
And then parlaying that into what you do with yoga.
Yes.
Interesting. It was probably, I think 2022. I was like probably the most out of shape I'd been in my adult life. Like as a kid, I had a lot of that, but I had like a 30 to 60 day intensive. I'd never done yoga before, but I literally just started intensively. I think I did like 3 times a day for 30 days. And it was one of the most profound mental experiences that I had ever gone through, because for so much of my life, I was living like really just like balled up in a lot of ways. Like my body was extremely tight. Everything was tight. And that I didn't realize at the time, because you live with this baseline of what your normal is. But once I did that intensive 30 days, my whole outlook on life changed. My whole body changed. All of a sudden, stress wasn't affecting me as much. Can you explain that to the layman who has never experienced that before?
Oh, yeah. Well, our spine is the highway to the divine. So you have an inflexible spine. You have an inflexible life.
Whoa.
And a lot of us have been living in a contracted, depressed, stressed, anxiety state. And I mean, I went to school for 13 years, so I was like this for so long. And yoga was the only thing that opened up my heart. And we have neurotransmitter in our clavicle. And so if we're like a half a centimeter off, like that puts us in depression. And so once you learn how to open up your heart, and with all of the postures, they open up your whole body. So you have hormonal balance, you have better metabolism, better glucose control. I mean, everything starts to balance when the body is stretching, is opening up, and that's why it stood the test of time, yoga. It's been around for 5,000 years. So it really is a way to open up the body, stretch the body open, because we get in these contracted places, and who knows how long we've been in these, watching television, being at a desk. These are not natural ways of being. And so we need to get ourselves out of it, and really working the muscles. It's really great to do, a muscle working out in the gym and stretching. It's vital. And breath work.
Yep.
Breath work is vital. And so is mantra. Breath work allows us to oxygenate our cells. And most of us are acidic. So we're not getting enough oxygen to our brain. So we're literally not even like awake in our physiology because we have lack of oxygen. We become acidic. And that's why fasting, yoga, breath work, it really alkalizes the body so that we can start detoxing out what we no longer need and coming into alignment. And when we're in a neutral alkaline state, that's when we're in a homeostasis and our moods are calm. When we're acidic, we're more likely to have depression, anxiety. So it really is so simple, but we've really, in Western medicine, complicated it with all these pharmaceuticals, making it seem scientific and like having studies and all this stuff to confuse the layman. But really, if we come back to it, like real healers, it's like acid, alkaline balance in the body, having a whole nutritious diet, nutrition, and it's really simple. It's just coming back to the basics. And so when you oxygenate the brain, when you stretch the body, when you get the spine in alignment, you have your neurotransmitters are firing better. You're able to like really connect to the divine. And for me, that's essential. Like, or you're just running around with your head cut off.
I love the fact that like we're talking about like connecting to the divine through all of these, like, through breath work. And what was the spine to the divine saying? What
is the highway to the divine. And
that really resonates with me in more than one way. But, a lot of people don't know about the fact that we have 33 vertebrae in the human spine. Right. And that once your Kundalini energy rises up the 33 vertebrae, it activates the pineal gland, which basically is activating Christ consciousness. And our pineal gland, in my personal opinion, but not from scientific way of speaking, but I truly believe that it is our antenna to the universe. It's our direct Wi-Fi. And not only can we receive transmissions through our pineal gland, but once we raise our vibration to a certain frequency and put a polarity out with a proper intention behind it, this is how we manifest our own reality. And so it's like, this is all of the stuff that people would call woo-woo and wouldn't think, oh, there's no science behind all of this or whatever. But like, this was actually the practice for thousands and thousands of years. And then all of a sudden, everything started being suppressed. And now we're taking all of these oil-based pharma meds that are actually lowering people's vibrations and turning off that connection with the divine. And so I think that like, it's a beautiful thing that get people talking about this again and incorporating these healthy lifestyle practices and these spiritual practices back into their lives, because this is what's going to end up helping transform humanity back to a higher state of consciousness that I actually think we used to be at.
And coming back to our power.
Yeah.
Kundalini energy is the most powerful energy in the whole entire universe, and we have it within us. And when we learn to activate our Kundalini, no one can control us. And that's what they want. They want us to be a sheep. They want us to follow their propaganda. And once you learn how to really tap into that energy, you become the most powerful force on the planet.
Could you explain what Kundalini is exactly for the layman?
Yeah. So Kundalini energy is they say that we have a serpent at the base of our spine. And before it's really awakened, it's asleep. It's asleep at the base of our spine. And through ancient practices like Kundalini Yoga, breath work, even ketamine therapy, psychedelics can awaken this serpent-like energy. And then this energy, it goes up the pingala and the inga of the spine. And it creates a DNA helix up your spine, and it awakens blocks. And so before you have a Kundalini awakening, you're going to be blocked energetically. And so the energy is not able to rise and really awaken the brain, awaken that pineal, and hypothalamus and pituitary gland. And these are the master glands of the body. So if our master glands aren't properly functioning, we're more likely to be in a disease state. And so that's why you see there's this rising of disease on the planet, and the pharmaceuticals are destroying our guts. Most of them are acidic. And so for me, I was bored when I was at UM. I was like, oh my God, this is all I'm going to learn. This is not a great toolbox for healing or preventative medicine. And so that's when I went fiercely into learning in Bali and India with master healers and shamans, because not only did I need to heal myself, I needed to heal my mother and my sister. And I'm so grateful that I was able to find this wisdom. But it wasn't like today where it's all over the internet. You had to really go searching for it.
I think that actually, I don't think, it's my belief that as one collective consciousness where separation is an illusion, that means that we are nothing separate from the divine. And within this matrix of the mind or simulation or whatever people might actually think that it is, that we are the avatars of consciousness. And so in that aspect, we are the embodiment of the divine. And in order to become that highest version of ourselves, it's incorporating all of these things that we're talking about right now to actually get us back there, And so it's stepping into that power and realizing, and this goes to where, people don't understand, they're keeping people asleep and stuff like that. It's once we realize just how powerful we are, I think to a hierarchical society, that would be a big threat. And, and I think that the more that we tap into these higher states of consciousness and raising our vibrations and more of this awakening that's happening, I believe that it's going to transmute humanity into this much more loving place where people are going to be, I don't know, it's when you take the fear factor out of everything, I don't have to be scared of, God punishing me or me going to hell or not following this program of fear that's kept us asleep. That right there is how I see with what we're talking about, like, you know, for my son, like people around my son's age, which is about 5 years old, I think when he's our age, that the world is going to be like a completely different place, because we're going to manifest something very beautiful together collectively once we tap into this divine power that we're all a part of.
And it only takes 1% of the population for this to happen.
Yeah.
And when we start to learn how to regulate our nervous systems, because that's really what it is, regulating the nervous system. And that's why I've been on this journey for myself. For 26 years, I've been practicing yoga and I've been teaching for 10, because it was the only way out for me and getting out of trauma. And it, you know, I was on pharmaceutical drugs for 13 years. Like, I really had to figure it out. And I'm so grateful for yoga, meditation, fasting, for like really slowing me down and getting me out of that fight and flight and like, I need to like run phase. And I feel like I'm now just getting out of it. And I'm 40 years old. So like, to be able to have lived a whole life in that fight and flight, I'm so grateful, because now I really understand the power of a regulated nervous system.
Yeah. Every time our son is hysterically crying or even just a little bit crying, I always do breath work with him. And I always try to just bring him back to his breath to be reminded that everything is okay right now. And I'm trying to breathe with him and just trying to teach him how to regulate through breath.
That's so beautiful.
But we weren't taught that as children.
No, we weren't.
No.
I like to look at it as a consumption epidemic, where we're talking about food, we're talking about yoga, and we're talking about breath work. The things that block that, for food, it's this fallacy that you need to be eating all the time, and the access to food has never, ever in the world been greater. The access to information and content has never been greater. All things pulling us away from doing things for ourselves physically, like yoga, running, anything that physically moves your body and takes us away from even being able to sit down when you're constantly constricted. I even think about it when I have a long day, even trying to get that deep breath is almost impossible, because everything's rolled back or everything's rolled forward, and it's constricting our rib cage to where we're not even able to move back. But there's this idea that we're in this consumption epidemic where we can never get off the rat race of just, okay, I'm going to eat, I'm going to work, and then I'm going to go home, watch Netflix, eat some more, go to bed, do the same thing over again. And I'm like, the thought of back in the day, not starting my day off with like some sort of food, like literally the first thing I do when I wake up is just grab something to eat. I can't even imagine now thinking about the clarity of thought when I give myself, even if it's like an hour, 2 hours. If I have to train, sometimes I'll eat a little bit of something just so that I'm able to do that. But that clarity of thought, so many people are missing. Why is it so important to get this integrated into people's lives? And how, for somebody who is looking at us right now on this podcast and they're like, what are you talking about? Like, I have no idea what you're talking about. What's step one?
Step one for me, it really took owning my mornings. Owning my mornings. 4 a.m. became the most powerful time of my life.
Most connected to God.
I was the most connected to God. And it really was the way for me and my family, my mother, my sister, my community to start taking control of our lives. Because we, at that time, are the most, they call it the Amrit Vela, the sweetest time of the day, where we have this quietness. We have the most access to prana, and we're able to really get that clarity and that connection. Because if we're not connected to God, what are we doing on this planet? You know, like we are following a program that was conditioned, that was learned, and we're usually doing something that is not in alignment. So if we're not in alignment with our highest self, with God, then we are, you know, praising something that may not be serving us. And a lot of people on this planet are serving something that isn't their highest self. And for me, that seems like a biggest waste of time that I could be doing. So 4 a.m. for me and for my community and in Miami, and I've been doing this practice for the last 10 years, has really allowed us to take back our power, take back my life, and reprogram my whole entire brain and consciousness. Because trauma had really swallowed me into the deepest prison ever. And so coming out of that prison through those wee hours in the morning was the ultimate blessing.
Yeah. It's interesting because people will hear that and be like, wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. What are you talking about? That I could never do that. But the idea is finding some time. And for you at that early morning, you have to do it then. Most people don't even have a second of breath, a second of I'm not either going somewhere, doing something, eating something, constricting myself, like basically stressed, whatever it ends up being. So there's no space, which means there's no dexterity of thought. There's no second to look at what do I feel? Why do I feel? We're always just in this immediate interaction, immediate reaction.
But we always have the time. We got to create the time. And that's an excuse. That's an excuse. Like I was in a master's program. I was taking care of my mother who was dying. Like I had a job. I was in clinicals, you know, like there's always going to be an excuse and you can choose to be asleep and be guided by a gut that is toxic, or you can choose to clean up your life, take control of your life and your breath, regulate your nervous system, and come alive. And for me, was really the only way, because I had been living in trauma, familial trauma for most of my life. And I didn't know, you know, what my future was going to be, you know, if I hadn't taken the reins.
That was powerful. And when did psychedelics come into play for you?
So
when did you start dabbling or exploring?
I took my longest it took me a long time to get on psychedelics because I was such a yogi and I was so committed to like reprogramming my consciousness without psychedelic healing. It was really when my mom was on her deathbed and I was the only one to step up. I was in school to become a nurse practitioner, and it was kind of like the contract that my mother and I had gone into this life with. And I was on my knees and I had just gotten out of an engagement. I was at UM. I was doing like a million things and doing 4 a.m. sadhana, and nothing was working. I was in total desperation. And my friend Michael Capone, who's the owner of GEM, has one of the biggest humanitarian missions on the planet right now. He was my teacher and really brought me into psychedelic healing. And that's when I decided, okay, enough is enough. Like I need something stronger. And my teachers have been telling me no ayahuasca. Thank God for Jayadev, my favorite teacher, Kundalini. He's like the most powerful Kundalini teacher on the planet right now. He's like, if this is what you're called to do, then do it. And I'm so happy I did. And this was like 10 plus years ago. And it was the awakening my soul was calling for on a level I just was like so grateful that I was able to release this familial and ancestral trauma that was just keeping me just so contracted, so 3D. I don't even know how to say it. Like just, it allowed my heart, it allowed my being to totally, and my aura and everything to expand, and for me to release the sadness that was like just holding me back from really shining.
You know, I love the way that the universe works because like I've known Bianca since we were like 7 or something, like in kindergarten, right?
Yeah, Seacrest.
Yeah, Seacrest Country Day School. And then we went to high school together. And like she saw me through some of my darkest times. I probably remember when my dad passed away and stuff when I was a real little kid. And then it's like I knew Bianca was on her spiritual journey and she was doing all of these amazing things. But, like I knew that she also was, dealing with a lot of plant medicine and kind of like the no synthetic avenue or whatever. And then it was like through the synchronicity of the universe, a guy was looking to do a documentary about ketamine. Okay.
Right. Oh yeah. Bringing me back.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh, and she was talking to the guy and then he's all like, And she's like, oh, well, I have to introduce you to my friend Charles because him and his wife are running a ketamine clinic in Bonita Springs. And that's the movie Lighter that hasn't been released yet. But he came out and ended up doing the documentary with us, which, you know, hopefully one day it will make it out. And I think it'll impact a lot of people. It's
amazing documentary.
Good film. But it was crazy because all of a sudden the film gets put together. And then Bianca, I sent the doc, or she ended up getting it from either me or Greg, but she watched it. And then it's okay if I talk about this?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. And then
I feel like a big part of my transformation was with ketamine.
Yeah. So then all of a sudden I get the phone call and she's like, all right, so I watched the film and I need to try this. Yeah. You know, because like, you know, and which was really powerful coming from Bianca because, you know, it's like she was strictly holistic plant medicines, no synthetic, anti-synthetics, and then ended up coming to my self-wellness and having some transformative experiences.
So grateful for ketamine because it's helped me and my mother and my community. And, you know, I was in the whole ketamine situation for 2.5 years. Like, I'm so grateful to have really, you know, personally helped me to get over a really bad breakup. It was hard for me to get my nervous system regulated. And, you know, I had all the tools, I thought. I had all the tools. And wow, ketamine, there's nothing like it on the planet. And thank God for ketamine because it helped me to finally really regulate my nervous system and calm me down. I had no idea that I needed that until I came to you guys.
Well, it's like, so Bianca had said like during one of her sessions, it was like one of the first time that she could really completely surrender and let go completely. And it, you know, it's being in the right setting and then it's a powerful medicine, but like,
it's about feeling safe too.
About feeling safe, for sure. But like, I think it's like a beautiful thing because coming out of that, then it like sparked this passion within Bianca. And all of a sudden, you know, she is a nurse practitioner and she's like, oh, well, this is so beautiful. I'm actually going to start going into the ketamine field and administering ketamine for people because I think it's such a powerful medicine.
Oh, and it was such a, you know, people did not understand. Like I got a lot of ammunition thrown at me because people are like, oh, this is a party medicine. You're a yogi, you're a naturalist. Why would you think ketamine's like even a thing? Like even my sister and like would like post things on social media against it. And like, I'm like, look, like this helped our mother get out of suicide. Yeah. This helped many, many people like get out of crisis, out of like, there's nothing like it. And I'm so grateful. I had long COVID. I had to get on ketamine a couple times in the last couple of years, not only for mental health crisis, but for long COVID.
Isn't that amazing what it's doing for long COVID?
Oh my God. It put me, the only symptom I had from long COVID was having like anxiety attacks at 3:45 in the morning. And I thought it was spirit talking to me. I was like, okay, I'm just going to do an hour of breath of fire. Little did I know I had long COVID. And when I got on ketamine, it helped me tremendously get out of that, like these panic attacks. I'm so grateful for ketamine because there's so many uses for it, not only for these crises, but for pain, for chronic illness. I think a lot of people are not educated and are very much basing it off of fallacy.
Yeah. We're actually doing a study right now with a company called Noonatics, and we are exploring to see, there was one paper published saying that they found ketamine crystals on the back of a fungus growing. So the theory is that it's actually a natural substance that we synthesized. Yeah. So we are recreating this study to see if this is true. And so it's really exciting to see, is this a natural crystal that, that nature brought to us? Because I feel like they would throw so many haters off saying that this is synthetic.
Until you need ketamine, you don't understand how vital it is for humanity. And there's nothing really out there. It's pseudoscience right now. Like the whole psychiatric industry is going down because everyone's realizing that most of it's based on these studies that are
fallacies.
not. Yes, it's just ridiculous.
I had a woman call up the other day, and she was thinking about doing treatments, and she was just like, listen, like, she's like, I don't even know why I'm calling you, because this is an extremely hardcore party drug that we're talking about and everything. And I'm like, well, what made you think that? And she's like, well, my husband told me. And I'm like, but I said, but in actuality, it's really not. I was like, it's like, this is literally so safe that they give it to babies. And I go, I'm sure you've heard awful things about fentanyl as well. And I personally don't think fentanyl is great. Even, medically prescribed fentanyl, like, is pretty rough. But the fact is like, in the hospital, it does have some uses, like for like immediate use, where it's not the stuff that's being abused on the streets that's killing people left and right. And so I think that, like, people hear, isn't it funny how it's always the horror stories with ketamine that are the things that make the headlines, and it's never the millions of people it's probably had a positive effect, or at least hundreds of thousands of people that it's had a positive effect in their lives. Like Christina was talking about this article that she read in Women's Health magazine the other day, and it was from some woman that went to Awaken in I think England, and she had an experience with ketamine that was healing and beneficial, but it caused her medical trauma because it was so expensive. But the thing is that, like, so it was basically an entire hit piece that was written on ketamine, but the problem is that I'm like, well, isn't this irresponsible reporting right here? Because the truth is like, so this is one negative story that's blasting all of the ketamine clinics out there, major publication. And
she
I was
even talking about how, like, it was more like a med spa.
Yeah.
You don't.
Christina's like, I feel personally attacked right now.
Yes, I did feel personally attacked.
I feel personally attacked because we're like more like a med spa. But the thing is like, so that's one negative story. But the thing is I guarantee you that clinic has saved countless lives.
Well, yeah,
but
they
that's
published
not
that
what,
AUD study. 60% of their participants.
In 80 something. So that's the same company that did the AUD study with ketamine for alcoholics. And over 80% of the people that did the treatments didn't have a sip of alcohol for over 6 months. Like, that wasn't what made the Women's Journal, that whole clinical study where people were getting sober from the medicine. It was one woman who got relief that thought she got traumatized because the treatments were too expensive.
And not to mention the Matthew Perry situation that just came out. So we talked about it on the show recently, but there's like the headline, ketamine kills Matthew Perry, or whatever the headline was. Yeah. And then they go ahead and just omit all the other drugs that were in his system.
Yes.
He was in the hot tub.
Yes.
When literally, I'm pretty sure any drug inside of a hot tub is a recipe for disaster.
Well, especially one that paralyzes
an anesthetic.
you.
Exactly. So then you take all of they take all of this. They take all of that away. They take all the context away, and they just throw that up there because on the flip side, you have Elon Musk being like, "Oh, this saved my life."
Well, it's like circling back around in publications right now, where it's like they're talking about it again, and it's basically like, okay, well, even though Matthew Perry hadn't done any treatments in a ketamine treatment facility for a while, they're going after the people that were supplying him with ketamine, and they're trying to arrest them for, like whatever the charge that they're going to give the people is. But like, it's still negative headlines back about ketamine when, I've never really seen a headline that started off with like, the anesthetic that's so safe that they give it to babies is changing people's lives. It's always this like doom and gloom, fear-based thing to, I believe, like prevent people to actually wanting to do this stuff, And listen, like, I want it, before it leaves my track of mind right now, like when Bianca was talking about how a lot of the people within, a holistic or spiritual community would start saying negative things about ketamine because it's a synthetic and it's not a natural plant medicine. One of my dear friends, Greg Lake, who is one of the co-founders of the Church of Silomethoxin, basically he's an attorney that helps set up plant medicine churches that supersede government laws. And like, it was part of his religious beliefs that synthetics were wrong. Okay. And then Greg, and I'm not breaking HIPAA because he did a video testimonial for us, but like Greg came out to the facility and he did ketamine treatments with us because he trusts me. And after he was done, he was like, I believe that this is a sacred medicine. And in actuality, when you take yourself out of the 3D living and you take yourself where I like to live, to the bird's eye view or the absolute, where we're all one collective consciousness, if everything is one collective consciousness, which we like to put the label of God on, well, then isn't everything divine no matter what? So that would literally make ketamine just as God-given as psilocybin or ayahuasca. Yeah.
Just going back to what you're talking about the modalities that you had before you experienced psychedelic therapy. A lot of people think that psychedelic therapy is this one-stop shop. Oh, you get administered a couple of doses, boom, you're saved. Life is going to be peachy from there. But in actuality, it gives psychedelic therapy, at least how Charles and Christina described it, it gives you a clean slate to apply new habits to your life to be able to continue the work. So once you got that, and obviously speaking to the people that have bad habits and haven't experienced this, explain the role that both the medicine plays, but then also the habits that we're talking about, yoga, breath work, fasting, incorporate in as well.
Yeah. So I really think, the medicine is the first step.
Mm-hmm.
And then integration is the journey of awakening,
mm-hmm.
right? Like you have the clarity with medicine, and then you have the tools of integration. Like yoga, weight training can be an amazing therapy, talk therapy, breath work. These are the tools that are going to help to really bring you alive. So you can do the medicine as much as you want. And if you're not doing the integration, you're not going to get the healing, period.
Exactly.
Like healing takes work. It's not as simple as taking a pill. And we've been lied to. It's been by pharmaceutical companies and the whole Western medicine. It's like, oh, just take this pill and you're going to heal. No, you got to put work into it.
Mm-hmm.
And the people at the top know this. That's why, like really following a daily spiritual practice and every day is a connection with the divine. And when you are able to create a life where you can honor yourself and honor that connection, that is when true healing begins.
Mm-hmm.
But until you really, connect the dots, you're going to be in the dark ages.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like, right, like getting lost in the medicine is a big issue.
Oh, it's huge.
It's like a lot.
One high to the next.
You got it. And see, or it's one high to the next, or people will have this revelation, right? It's like you have this breakthrough experience and you're in the presence of God, or you realize that we're all a part of it. And then you get this download of information, which is completely transformative and life-changing. And you're like, oh my gosh, I just unlocked secrets of the universe, right? And so, but a lot of the time when you get these messages, unlocking these secrets or this information is stuff that you need to apply to your life. But the problem is that it's such a mind-blowing, euphoric, amazing experience that instead of applying what you learned to your life, you're already planning your next session. You're like, oh my gosh, I just learned so much. I need to go back and learn more, rather than integrating that stuff into your life. Because if you don't do that, people will start to keep on getting the same message over and over again. And I know from personal experience, that did happen to me. And then all of a sudden, once you don't listen to the message, the medicine experience can backfire on you, and it'll humble you really quickly and kind of like beat you down into submission, where it's just like, you already have the answer. And since I've already given you the answer and you're not doing what you're supposed to with it, I'm going to make this a real unpleasant experience for you. So you stop doing it for a second and actually integrate what you learned the first time.
Holy shit.
Well, lessons can come as a feather, and then over time, they come as a brick
Yeah.
and like to your face.
Yeah.
And so if you're not going to listen to the lessons, and it really takes a deep listening, and it takes looking at your shadows. It takes looking at the behaviors that are limiting you, that are keeping you small. And it really takes a heart-centered warrior to confront their darkness.
Yeah.
And you can't just like, oh, I'm going to go from one high to the next, because I did the same thing, you know, and I was doing ayahuasca every month for many, many years. Like, but I was also facilitating and I knew that this was really one of the most powerful things that I've ever, you know, but it became almost like an addictive way of being, and you see it now. And now I probably do ayahuasca once a year. And maybe I'll do ketamine once a year if I really, really, really need it. But now it's like my main medicine is integration, is having a daily practice, is being in nature, connected to family, loving my friends, spending as little time on social media as possible.
Thank you.
Right?
Wow.
Like getting away from the addictive ways of being that have been so conditioned in our culture. And so when we learn how to break out of our conditioning and really, really get humbled by our shadows, that's when you really start to heal.
There's this idea of like a forward center of mass, and it's most people that are stuck in a loop. Like I grew up in the phase of like TV being like, you know, if you wanted to get a kid who's bad, like you basically put him in front of the TV, gave him a bunch of snacks, and that would pretty much keep him occupied. That was a lot of my life for a very long time. That experience is hard to break out of. So you're so used to basically being on your heels where you can't take a step forward. You can't move yourself to do something better for yourself. And that's where we become these dopamine drug stimulation addicts, because all you can do is chase the next distraction, chase the next change of state. One of the things that I've talked about it a bunch, but I struggled for a while with cannabis consumption because I was so addicted to the change of state, because all I wanted to do was live in this higher elevated space where it's like, which it gives you, which is honestly, it saved my life in a lot of ways, because it allowed me to take a beat in between action to reaction. It gave me that space. But when that is your only out, and that is the only thing, that's where you get people that are consistently consuming it 10 times a day. And obviously we know that leads to psychosis and all these different mental battles where you're trying to get away from it. But the point in saying all that was this idea of taking the medicine and then having a forward center of mass to understand, here's the blueprint. Now I have to go act on it. And without when you get in that mindset of, okay, I just got to wait until my next high, you're going to delay that. But for a lot of people, it's like this immediate, I did it, I need to do it again because that's my only way out. And I haven't experienced it personally, but I can understand where that gets very tricky.
You know, I had, like, when we were talking before the show, we were talking about how everybody's perceiving their own reality.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I actually recently had this revelation that when I was heavily using cannabis, a lot of the time I was using it is because I didn't agree with where society was at, like within the 3D matrix, right? Like I didn't feel right or a part of that. And so when I used cannabis, it made me be in my own little bubble where I was living my own reality. And I got to like shut all of that stuff off because being a part of that program didn't feel right for me. And then like, I think that what happened with like the psychedelic part is that because I always felt like an outcast, like I'm not supposed to be a part of this. So I'm going to smoke and I'm going to get in my own little bubble. And like, I'm going to live within my own little reality because this feels way better to me. Then once I started doing the deep dives with psychedelics, I was like, oh, you know what? That isn't right. Like it's okay that that's not right. And it's okay that I don't have to be a part of that. And then like, so like, I don't know, it's weird because psychedelics actually helped me with overusing my cannabis and needing to live in my own little bubble like that so much, because I realized that I wasn't the outcast. I was living the way that I actually genuinely knew that I was supposed to be living, and that I didn't have to feel like I didn't need to be a part of something and like get away from it by overusing cannabis. I needed to manifest my own thing.
And you need to go through it and be able to, like you're talking about, all these modalities. That is the way to operate within. Yeah. And the question I'm actually...
only way out is in.
Exactly. Yes. And the question I was going to tee up next with that is, there's this battle. My mom worked in hospitals for years, like years and years and years. She still does. There's a battle right now, and we talk about this all the time: Eastern medicine, Western medicine. And for a lot of people, if you're in this camp, if you're in the Western medicine side, these people are crazy. And on the Eastern medicine side, these people are evil. So you're having this consistent challenge between the two. The one thing that I look at Western medicine I have a lot of respect for is their appetite for learning and their appetite for ingesting information and trying to apply that to practices that we're talking about. How did the study of being in a Western medicine system where they throw all the information in the world at you specifically, how did that translate to when you started introducing Eastern medicine philosophies? How did those two parlay together?
Well, I was really born into Western medicine. I am 5th generation nurse, first nurse practitioner at my family. So my mom was a nurse for 55 years. And so I thought when it came to mental health healing was to get on pharmaceuticals.
Yep.
And so I was very much dedicated to my education for 13 years. I went to, Columbia and NYU and University of Miami. Like, I was on a search for the truth. And it really took the experiential understanding, right? Like, I went on medications for 13 years. I was diagnosed with it all. I lost my dad at 20 years old. And I was in the pits of depression. And so, of course, I went to Western medicine, antidepressants, stimulants like Adderall. So I had to experience it for myself. I had to go through the educational process. I had to get my master's at University of Miami. I had to be with the leading thinkers to understand what the heck was going on. And I did not find relief. And that's how I understood that we were severely limited in Western medicine, because I was still chronically depressed. My gut had been destroyed from being on medications, and my mother and my sister were not doing well at all. And so that's when I had to make the decision, not only for myself, but for my family, because it was a life or death situation. And that, thank God, I was young enough, and when I learned that all of these medications that I was taking were class 3 medications that were going to that were a danger to the fetus. Like, you're putting a 20-year-old, fertile girl on these medications that are not only destroying your gut, but are toxic. And are creating an addiction, a severe addiction. And it's just like, what? This is what we're doing to the brightest minds on the planet, is putting them on these severe chemicals. And so that's really how I went, and I was like, I'm out of here. Like, halfway through my master's, I was like, this is ridiculous. This is what I'm learning. Like, these are the tools. And so thank God I had like a whole community and support to get me through my master's, because I was so disturbed and disgusted by the system. At that point, I was like, oh my God. But thank God for pharmaceuticals at the same time. Adderall helped me to get through 2 bachelor's and a master's, you know, like, so there's like this flip side of the coin, so I think there is a good place for Western medicine. Of course, that's why I'm a nurse practitioner. But like, for me, I prefer getting people off the chemicals, getting them on these more Eastern modalities, because there is a place for them. Thank God. For my mother, for my sister, for me, for my family, for my clients. Yes, some people do really well on Prozac. Sometimes they have to be on it for life. It's the only thing that keeps them out of depression, and you can't explain it. But I do prefer the natural way.
But the only way out is through. And I think a lot of times when you have the Eastern medicine camp, they want to fight with the Western medicine.
Yeah.
But
at
a lot of,
they're also getting their paycheck from Western medicine.
And that's the thing.
Let's get down to business.
Exactly. There's a lot of
let's get real.
Yeah, there's a battle between the two, but yet the only way that I believe Eastern medicine is actually going to help reshape in terms of being integrated into like commonplace in the US and the Western world is through Western medicine. You have to infiltrate to be able to transform the way that we look at it, because most people, myself included, when I didn't feel right, the only person I trusted to tell me how to get better was my doctor. And there's so many people that are currently living in that situation. They have great relationships with their primary care physician. They have great relationships with all their doctors. And that's their only way of understanding and being able to actually trust what the next step is. And unless you have great primary care that are able to like, hey, this is okay, you're never going to be able to make the biggest impact, I believe.
It reminds me of this one story. We had this client that was on bipolar medication, and this medication was not covered by insurance. He was paying like $10,000 or $13,000 every month to his primary care doctor. And the doctor called our clinic and was like, this person is severely bipolar. He needs to be on these medications. You can't take him off. And Dr. Ferber was like, are you a psychiatrist? No? Well, this man is not bipolar. And if you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to call me. And we got the guy off of this medication. He is a totally transformed being and like living a perfectly happy, healthy life without this.
He quit. He got off all of his medications, quit drinking, he quit smoking cigarettes, and he's like thriving in life now. And they had him on a string of pharma meds, and he's like, I knew I wasn't bipolar. And he's just like, he's like, I just had PTSD, and he didn't know how to like process it, and then they kept throwing him on all these different meds, which were screwing everything up.
But the doctor was mad at us because we took away that revenue from her.
And the side effects of these medications are lethal. Are you kidding me? They'll put you into bipolar. Are you? It's so nuts. The fact that, I mean, just look at these medications and look at the side effects. You have to be insane. Like, that's why they've packaged them up in these little ways and like put a guy in a white suit to give it to you. Yeah. And in other countries, we don't have that. No. Go and you can go to a pharmacy and get whatever you want, which is kind of dangerous. But like people don't rely on pharmaceuticals in other countries.
It's also not advertised everywhere.
Well, like, let's not forget, and listen, like, I'm not bashing doctors by any means, because I have tons of my friends, doctors, like, we have a doctor, amazing one that works with us. The fact is, though, is like, let's not forget, let's rewind, 70 years ago, like doctors were promoting cigarettes. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so like the thing is that it's whatever is the program. And that's one thing that kind of like, it's always taught through Western medicine, right? So it's like you get this program of what's healthy, and then it's like, this is a taught thing, and it's this program that gets laid upon us. The one thing I see in the difference between Eastern medicine and Western medicine, and like a lot of the people that are making these programs have, they're depending on reoccurring revenue that comes from pharmaceutical medications. And the thing is that Eastern medicine is more about doing things from going within and these natural healing modalities.
Getting to the root cause and the root issue.
But there's no reoccurring revenue in that. The one thing I do,
you can't patent a plant.
No,
but they're trying to.
They're trying to.
I know
they just did that with ketamine.
Well, no. So what they're doing is like they're taking like psilocybin, right? And like instead of, so when psilocybin goes through FDA approval, you will not be taking mushrooms. You'll be taking a synthetic form of mushrooms that's going to have a patent on it, that's going to go through FDA approval, because then the pharmaceutical companies are going to be able to monetize off of it and make money. But it's like, it's like, I don't know, that's kind of like a crime in itself, because it's like nature did give us something that's really, amazing. And but that being said, playing devil's advocate here, the fact is, though, I am a fan of synthetics in a way also, because when you have synthetic psilocybin, you know exactly the
true.
dose that you're giving somebody, because when you have real fruit body mushrooms, it might have a different amount of psilocin in it psilocin in it than another strand of mushrooms. So you don't know what you're always getting.
And MDMA is amazing.
Oh,
like, are you kidding me? And that's purely a chemical,
100%.
especially for relationships and for depression and for like relationships in general. It can really bring people out of some deep darkness.
I've never had a compound give me more gratitude and open-hearted lovingness for everyone else, including myself, than MDMA. And listen, like when I went from shifting my partying days to using cocaine all the time, which I used to go out and get drunk and use a lot of cocaine, to shifting that to like going into more of like the EDM scene when I was using MDA in a recreational sense, even though I'm not advocating for that right now. I actually really found that was a huge shift in my life, because all of the sudden I went from being this very angry and overly aggressive person to somebody that really cared about and loved other people. Like when I was in that scene and there was massive amounts of MDMA flooding around and going everywhere, I was truly convinced that MDMA was going to change the world in that aspect. You know, it's crazy, man. I used to go to Plies concerts and stuff like that when I was drinking too much and doing the other white stuff. And then, you know, everybody be like, you know, beating each other up in the club, and somebody get shot in the parking lot. And then there'd be a SWAT task force going through the parking lot, where like, when I flipped that and started going to like raves in the EDM scene, and everybody was just hugging each other and loving each other. Like I think out of every rave I went to, I only saw one fight, and it's because there was alcohol involved. But like, it was a completely different vibe. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so much better. Everybody loves each other. I want to be a part of this rather than that other thing. And so like, you know, you have to take a look at it from the aspect of, in a world that thrives off of drama and violence and all of these negative things, incorporating MDMA into that doesn't really fit the narrative.
So true. And with any medicine, you have to do it intelligently.
Yes.
Right. And especially with MDMA, I mean, you look at the research, it's incredible. It's sad that it hasn't become legal in the United States, honestly. But with that medicine, you have to do it intelligently, because the serotonin drops, dopamine drops. You can go into severe depression by taking too much MDMA. So that's why it's so important to have the education and the clinical backing, like what you were saying with the Western medicine. Yes, it is a gateway for taking off that badge that our presidents have put on it, and criminalizing it and making it something that it's not.
The other thing about when it comes to Western medicine, there's a narrative around doctors and things like that. I grew up around doctors. They have the purest intentions most of the time. Most of the time. First of all, they have to make a living, which is where you get these reoccurring revenue like situations. It's just true. In a lot of cases, I actually found this out. Doctors haven't gotten like a raise based on inflation since, I think, what was it, the 1980s or something like that. So doctors, you could spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on schooling and still come out. And if you're pediatrics, you're making $90,000 a year with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And the whole idea around these people wanting to go into medicine, you have the people that it's about status and it's about being able to schmooze with the other people at the cotillion, which is nothing against cotillions, even though I have a little something against it, but whatever. Point being, the people that show up there, they actually want to help most cases, but it's the curriculum that they're being taught and then the way that they're being taught. Because it's not just about, hey, you're learning, you know, again, pharmacology in a lot of ways. It's like, okay, what's the symptom? How are we going to put the Band-Aid on the symptom? But you're putting people through so many sleepless nights. You're basically wrecking all natural, healthy habits that they have. And then on top of that, you're teaching them a curriculum which is pretty much anti-healing, healing the root cause of things. And it's more so Band-Aid, 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 Band-Aid.
It's so sad and disturbing. It's really, because I think like you were saying, they go like, I went in with the purest intentions. Most of my friends do, because like you were saying, we are being weeded out from day one in college. And it really takes a warrior to get through the educational system.
It is.
And then you fall, most people get on Adderall. Most people get on bad diets and Diet Coke and McDonald's because that's what's at the hospitals. It's so sad. Then you become a puppet for this system.
Yep.
And then you have all of this debt. So it's like, it is almost like you're getting shackled from the beginning in this prison that you don't even know you're going into. And so that was like the saddest part for me, because I was in the midst of my master's and I'm like, oh my God, like, how do I get out of this system? And the only way was to create my own system. And it really requires a doctor that's willing to go into the unknown and create their own systems. And you see it now, like private practices, concierge medicine is like where they can thrive if they set themselves up right. But most medical practitioners aren't educated in business. And so like, that was the hardest part for me, and so getting a business coach, getting a team to help me to create the systems to get out of the system. And I'm so grateful I found a way out of this, this nightmare in a way, because it's like you lose yourself in the system because there's no other way. You become in this like sleepless nights. Like my master's put me into PTSD, the anxiety of going through sleepless nights, never having a break. Like but I was like, okay, my heart's in this. Like I am here to like change the world, but it really requires changing yourself. And so that whole journey happened after education, like literally.
And think about the PTSD that soldiers get. So they go off to war.
Yeah.
They battle, they fight. In a lot of cases, they're fighting over God knows what. They come back, they're completely isolated from their community, and then they're just told, be normal. And then you have doctors or nurse practitioners or whoever who are going into their own semblance of war. And not only just war, you're getting put one debt, sleepless nights, bad habits. You get all these things. And then if you're like yourself and you're like, something's wrong here, you have to then remove yourself from the community that in a lot of cases gives people this sense of well-being. Like being a part of a community is huge for mental well-being, but you take them away from that. Now they're ostracized. And then all of a sudden you got to make sure you know how to run a business, because if not, that debt is going to start catching up to you real quick.
Well, I love being a nurse practitioner because I can pivot, right? Like, I was in ketamine for 2.5 years. Now I'm going into stem cells. Like I'm going to be working with wounds and helping salvage limbs. So like there is a way out, and you have to be in your entrepreneurial power.
Yeah.
And that's with anything, right? But with doctors, they are on one track. And I think the way that Western medicine is going, that we're entering the golden age of Western medicine, like with stem cells, with ketamine. So it might be a little slower because, you have to change the educational system, the books.
The curriculum.
Like the curriculum takes years and years and years for things to change. So I think we are stepping into the golden age. It's just going to take a little bit of time.
We're living in mental health, in the mental health arena. We're still living on the curriculum from the 1950s.
Yeah.
How insane is that?
It's insane.
The 1950s. We didn't even know what an iPhone was in the 1950s. And yet we're using the curriculum to teach psychiatrists and people that are working in the field, the curriculum based on a world that we can't, if we looked at it now, we wouldn't even be able to recognize the world from then to now.
Yeah.
And that's why this podcast, and that's why social like engagement and change and, Instagram and Facebook is so critical, because it helps like really educate the masses. And I'm so honored to be here with you guys to have these enlightening conversations that is really crucial to the masses, because how else are we supposed to understand and know and have this level of authority and understanding unless people like us telling our stories, sharing our experiences, and really bringing real news to the table. Because right now it's all like BS. Like, it's propaganda. It's a way to make money. It's not true understanding and truth.
Well, I think that like one thing that I really heard that you said, and it resonates with me so much, is that, see, you're making this, you're a part of this paradigm shift because you had an experience where the typical like Western philosophy and medications were given to you, and you're like, wait a second, there's something really wrong with this, and it's not working for me, and it's making me worse, and it's hurting me, and like, I'm an educated woman, and now I need to figure out what I need to do differently and help bring this out to everybody else because the system's broken. And seeing like, it's these personal stories of triumph and going through the dark to get to the light so we can use our experience, strength, and hope to be there for other people. And so like, I really appreciate you and everything that you're doing for humanity and using your powerful voice as a strong woman to really like, get this information out there and help break the taboos and stigmas associated with all of this.
Thank you, Charles. And you as well. It's not easy to be real as fuck. It's not. You're going to get the ammunition. You're going to get all the naysayers. You're going to get, but like at the end of the day, when you are connected to the divine and you know your path, there's nothing more powerful and fulfilling on this planet. And so for me, like it's the only way, because I had to wear masks. I had to be fake as fuck for most of my life. And that was making me so sick and ill. And I had to like rip off the mask, rip off the ways of being that were keeping me so constricted and so sick. And it really requires that to step into your greatness and your power. And so I'm just surrounded by greatness right now. And it's the greatest honor, because it's our moments like this that helps. If it helps just one person, thank God, like I've done my deed.
Yeah. One powerful story, one more powerful story, though. It's like that one person is the next pebble to get thrown into the still pond that ripples out into the universe. I mean, like, you have no idea how often I have people come up to me and they're just like, what happens to people like you, right? Or like, you like, listen, man, you might want to be, like a little bit more careful with what you talk about. Or even when we had Carlton Washington on the show, he's like, you might have to start this show off with like a disclaimer that you're not suicidal and you don't want to hurt yourself. And the thing is like, well, if I'm not going to be my true authentic self and share my truth and what has truly helped me, not to mention the fact that we are all extensions of the divine, and so this is my connection to God, like, if I'm not living that truth, then am I really living? No, of course not. No. So you have to do what your highest self, the divine, would want. And that would be, from my perspective, to share things about your experience that you've made it through that are going to truly help people and end the suffering.
And it's my mission is to empower the youth, empower the 20-year-olds, empower the people that need to really wake up, like for this world to change. And if I'm not part of the solution, I'm part of the problem. And I don't want to be that person because I think that's a slow death. And you see a lot of people living a slow death, living in the darkness, taking the medications, ignoring their true self. And that just, you're in the karma, you're repeating the ancestral ways of being that is not going to bring this world to where it needs to be. And so, it's these conversations, it's this getting real as fuck so that we can I
think that's what we should change the name to our podcast.
The
Real as Fuck podcast.
Because growing up in Naples, wow, there was so many masks I had to wear to be here. everyone wanted to be the Joneses, who have the most expensive car, the nicest house, the nicest, Nike tennis shoes, and so I had to live in a very materialistic, very cookie cutter kind of being. But I'm really grateful for Seacrest because it really helped to awaken that creativity. But at the same time, it was like breaking out of all of that took going and traveling the world, seeing people with nothing, being amidst like real life. And then the psychedelics. I mean, wow, thank God for psychedelic healing because it's really been a revolution for me and so many people I know. And thank you, Christina.
Yeah. Thank you,
Charles.
Thank you.
Thanks for trusting
us. I love you guys so much.
Yeah.
Like it really takes a power couple to do what you're doing because it's not easy.
It takes
get up every day and to grind and to hustle. I mean, it's not, you guys make it look glamorous, but it's not.
It's not. It's not.
You guys make it look so good.
No.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
so do you.
Yeah.
Though. Seriously, listen,
and you
this
look hot as fuck doing it.
And I just hope people are 20 years old and not 40 years old, to get to this point.
Yeah. No, listen, this is the movement.
Yeah.
This is this revolution, this group of like-minded people that are ourselves that are really banding together and creating this massive collaboratory voice that I truly believe is going to be the catalyst of what's really going to transform everything, and it's we all have our personal stories of triumph. Christina has an amazing story of triumph coming back from her accident and healing with medicines and creating this company with me where now we're helping people. You have this amazing transformative story and, you've watched your family go through so many different things and how Western medicine in this aspect failed. And then, the other Eastern modalities and all of these things are really making a tangible difference. And I mean, even you, man, it's you, when you were younger, you had certain issues and anger, stuff like that. And then you used cannabis and you started, exercising and these long runs that you do. It's all of these things. This is that light at the end of the tunnel for people that are still stuck in the tunnel.
I think it's the light of the beginning of the tunnel.
The light at the beginning of the tunnel. No, it seriously is. So
how can people support you on your journey to impact the world?
Oh, wow. What a question. So I'm on the social media. I'm at Instagram, Bianca Abbott Wellness. And if you want to learn more about fasting, you can go to lunafast.com. It's also the LunaFast on Instagram. And I'm also on Facebook. And you can check out my website, biancaabbott.com. And send me a message, send me a DM. If you're really, suffering from chronic illness, want another perspective on healing, I'm here. I'm your girl. It is my passion to help people that have been basically failed by Western medicine. I help people heal from, 50 years of being on, pharmaceuticals, get them off, cleanse their gut, and then put them on, plans that allow them to awaken and empower the physician within so that they don't have to rely on their own physician. They wake themselves up and they become intuitive and they understand what they need from within.
That's great. That's great. Physician within. You should tagline that.
I do.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Good.
Send us out.
Oh, amazing.
Go ahead.
Another amazing episode.
You go ahead.
Oh, you want me to do it?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, well, that was another amazing episode with Bianca. The first time ever. Well, no, not really. We've had you on our podcast before, but not this one.
Not this
our old podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's always such a pleasure hanging out with you and seeing your face, and can't wait to do it again soon. So if nobody's told you that they love you lately, we do.
Yeah.
Aww.